Have you ever wondered why kind-hearted people often end up alone, despite their best efforts to help others? It's a puzzling paradox that many face. Being genuinely nice should, in theory, attract love and companionship. Yet, for some, kindness seems to push people away instead. In this article, we'll explore why this happens, drawing on insights from Joe Dispenza's motivational teachings. We'll dive deep into how your energy, boundaries, and self-worth can shape the relationships you form. The role of self-sacrifice in kindness. As we continue exploring the paradox of why nice people end up alone, let's dive into one of the most overlooked reasons: the danger of self-sacrifice. Imagine this. Sarah, a kind-hearted woman, spends years pouring her energy into taking care of others, her friends, family, and colleagues, always putting their needs before her own. She smiles through her exhaustion, thinking that being the nice one will ultimately make her feel loved and valued. But instead, over time, she feels drained and disconnected. She's giving so much of herself, yet her emotional needs remain unmet, and she finds herself alone when she most craves connection. This story is all too common for many people who identify as nice. The idea that kindness means putting others first is ingrained in us from a young age, yet it can create a cycle of emotional depletion and even loneliness. At first, sacrificing your time, energy, and resources for others might feel fulfilling. You gain praise, appreciation, and a sense of purpose. However, the more you give, the more you may find yourself lost in a cycle of constant self-neglect. Joe Dispenza's teachings about energy offer a crucial insight here. He explains that when we sacrifice too much of ourselves for others, we often deplete our own energy reserves. This imbalance creates an energetic void within, as we no longer feel connected to our true selves. Instead of nurturing our own needs, we become too focused on satisfying others, and in doing so, we lose sight of our own desires and emotional health. Over time, this leaves us feeling empty, vulnerable, and even resentful. The problem lies in the misconception that being nice equals always giving, when, in reality, it's essential to honor your own emotional well-being first. What happens when you constantly put others before yourself is that you fail to establish healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are the foundation of any lasting relationship. Without them, you might attract people who take advantage of your kindness without offering anything in return. These relationships may feel one-sided, draining, and ultimately isolating. As time goes on, you might notice that the more you give, the less you get back. The emotional imbalance creates a space where true, authentic connection is hard to form. The irony is that when we are constantly sacrificing for others, we forget the importance of self-care and self-love. Dispenza encourages us to focus on our own energy, to take time for self-reflection, and to honor our own emotional needs. It's only when we take care of ourselves first that we can genuinely offer love, care, and kindness to others. Setting boundaries and saying no when necessary doesn't make us bad people. It helps us build stronger, more balanced relationships where both parties feel valued and respected. So, the key is not to stop being nice, but to learn how to be kind in a way that doesn't drain you. By taking time to nurture your own well-being and creating boundaries that protect your energy, you'll find that the relationships you form will be more fulfilling and mutual. True kindness stems from a place of self-respect and balance, and that's the secret to attracting the love and companionship you deserve. Joe Dispenza's perspective on energy and attraction, building on the idea of self-sacrifice. It's crucial to understand how your energy plays a pivotal role in the relationships you attract. Remember Sarah, the kind-hearted woman who always put others before herself? While her intentions were pure, the energy she was emitting, exhausted, depleted, and off balance, wasn't drawing in the love or connection she desired. Instead, it pushed people away, despite her constant efforts to give. This is where Joe Dispenza's perspective on energy and attraction becomes vital. According to Dispenza, the energy you carry and emit is the foundation of every relationship you build. And when your energy is out of sync with your true self, it can lead to loneliness, even when surrounded by people. To grasp this, let's dive into Dispenza's core idea. You are a magnet for the energy you put out. This concept suggests that your thoughts, emotions, and overall energy shape your experiences and the people you attract. If you're constantly depleting yourself to please others, you're projecting an energy of neediness and desperation, even if you don't consciously intend to. People sense this, and it often pushes them away. They may not understand why, but they can feel that something isn't quite right in your energy field. Consider the story of James, a man who was always eager to help his friends and family. He gave selflessly, trying to be the nice guy in every situation. However, despite his best efforts, James found himself in shallow, one-sided relationships. He felt invisible, like no one truly saw or appreciated him for who he was. Then, he stumbled upon Dispenza's work and realized the problem wasn't just his actions. It was his energy. He had been vibrating at a frequency of exhaustion and need, and this energy wasn't attracting the kind of love and relationships he craved. Instead of focusing on others' needs, he began to turn inward, heal, and raise his own energy. He realized that by changing his internal vibration, through self-love and emotional healing, he could begin attracting relationships that were more authentic and fulfilling. This idea isn't just theoretical. Dispenza's work shows that the energy we emit has a direct impact on the kind of people and experiences we attract into our lives. If we are constantly in a state of self-sacrifice and depletion, we may unconsciously repel the very connections we seek. On the other hand, when we nurture our own energy, focus on self-growth, and align with our true selves, we naturally draw in people who match our vibration. The key takeaway here is that the energy you give off can either hinder or enhance your ability to connect with others. It's about creating a shift within yourself. First, by learning to prioritize your own needs and emotions, and second, by working on elevating your energy through self-care, positive thoughts, and emotional healing. When you begin to nurture your own energy, you'll start to see the change in the types of people and relationships that come into your life. Rather than attracting those who drain you, you'll attract those who truly resonate with your authentic self, leading to deeper, more meaningful connections. So, just like James, if you're feeling stuck in a cycle of loneliness, it may not be about doing more for others. It's about shifting your internal energy and aligning with the type of love and relationships you deserve. Fear of rejection and vulnerability. Continuing from the idea of energy and attraction, we now shift focus to another powerful force that shapes our relationships. Fear. Fear of rejection and vulnerability often stand in the way of authentic connections, particularly for nice people who overextend themselves to others. As we learned from Joe Dispenza's teachings, it's not just about giving energy, but about the quality of energy you project. But what happens when you're so afraid of rejection that you hold back your true self? The energy you radiate becomes one of guardedness, making it even harder to form meaningful relationships. Take Emily's story, for example. She was the quintessential nice person, always the first to offer a helping hand, always putting others before herself. Yet, when it came to her own emotional needs, she would retreat. Emily had been burned before, giving so much of herself to others, only to be rejected or misunderstood. The scars of past rejection made her afraid to fully open up again. She worried that showing her true self would push people away, so she built walls around her heart. She convinced herself that if she kept being nice and putting others first, they would eventually love her back. But despite her efforts, Emily found herself feeling more alone than ever. She couldn't figure out why her relationships felt shallow, and why she always ended up feeling emotionally drained. This fear of vulnerability is something that Joe Dispenza frequently discusses. He explains that when we are afraid to show our true selves, we suppress the very energy that could form deep connections. We create emotional barriers to protect ourselves from being hurt again, but in doing so, we prevent ourselves from experiencing true intimacy. The very act of being vulnerable, of allowing ourselves to be seen for who we really are, can be terrifying. But vulnerability is the key to unlocking real, fulfilling relationships. Without it, we're left in a cycle of surface-level interactions, never truly connecting on a deeper level. It's important to recognize that fear of rejection is a natural human emotion. Everyone has experienced it at some point, whether it's from a past relationship, a failed friendship, or even a rejection in a professional setting. But when this fear becomes a pattern, it starts to shape how we show up in our relationships. We withhold parts of ourselves, often unconsciously, which ultimately leads to loneliness. If we're constantly guarding our hearts, we prevent ourselves from forming authentic, loving connections. What Emily learned, after much introspection and guidance from Dispenza's teachings, was that the only way to overcome this fear was to embrace vulnerability, to open herself up, even at the risk of being hurt again. Through self-love and emotional healing, she began to feel comfortable with her own vulnerabilities. And as she did, her relationships began to shift. She was no longer afraid of rejection because she had learned to love and accept herself, regardless of external validation. Her openness created deeper, more authentic connections with others, and most importantly, she no longer felt alone. In essence, fear of rejection and vulnerability holds us back from experiencing the full potential of our relationships. By facing these fears and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable, we can break free from the cycle of loneliness and create the deep, meaningful connections we truly desire. The cycle of people-pleasing and emotional detachment building upon the fear of rejection and vulnerability. Let's explore another key reason why nice people often end up feeling alone. The cycle of people-pleasing. When we fear rejection, it's easy to fall into the trap of constantly trying to please others in order to gain their approval and avoid the pain of being alone. But while people-pleasing may feel like a temporary solution, it can actually lead to emotional detachment and deeper loneliness. Take the story of Mark, a kind and generous man who would do anything to keep the peace in his relationships. Whether it was agreeing to plans he didn't enjoy or sacrificing his own needs to make others happy, Mark was always the first to offer help. However, over time, he began to feel drained. He realized that he was never truly being seen or understood by others. He was only being valued for what he could do for them. Mark was caught in a never-ending cycle of trying to meet others' expectations, all the while feeling more and more disconnected from his own wants and desires. This is the emotional cost of people-pleasing. When we spend all our time and energy trying to make others happy, we lose sight of our own identity and emotions. Dispenza teaches that true connection begins with self-awareness and self-love. If we are constantly bending over backward to appease others, we build an emotional wall around ourselves. We might give some more, but never receive the emotional connection we long for. We start to detach from our own needs, silencing our true selves in the process. The consequences of this detachment are far-reaching. Mark, like many others, began to feel invisible, as if he was just a pawn in others' lives without being fully appreciated. His relationships were not built on authenticity, but on the expectation of self-sacrifice. He was no longer emotionally invested in those relationships because he had lost the sense of his own emotional boundaries. Every time he put others' needs before his own, he felt more and more like a shadow of himself. What Mark eventually realized, through introspection and the teachings of Joe Dispenza, was that people-pleasing creates a facade, a mask we wear to protect ourselves from the discomfort of being vulnerable. It feels safe in the short term, but it isolates us in the long run. When we don't show up as our true, authentic selves, when we suppress our emotions in order to please others, we create an emotional distance that no amount of giving can bridge. To break free from the cycle of people-pleasing, we must learn to set healthy boundaries. Boundaries are the cornerstone of any meaningful relationship. They protect our emotional well-being and ensure that we are showing up as our true selves, not just as a version of ourselves designed to please others. By learning to say no when needed, we honor our own emotions and needs, which in turn allows for more genuine and balanced relationships. When we stop people-pleasing, we can finally build relationships that are rooted in mutual respect and authenticity. In essence, the cycle of people-pleasing doesn't just drain us, it disconnects us from ourselves and others. By embracing our true selves, setting boundaries, and focusing on self-love, we can break free from this cycle and create relationships that are deep, fulfilling, and real. It's not about pleasing others. It's about honoring yourself and creating connections that resonate with your authentic energy. The power of self-love and healthy boundaries. Continuing from the previous discussion about people-pleasing and emotional detachment, let's now explore a transformative shift: the power of self-love and the importance of setting healthy boundaries. When we begin to break free from the cycle of constantly trying to please others, the next step is learning to embrace our own worth and prioritize our needs. This shift is crucial not only for our mental and emotional well-being, but also for creating deeper, more fulfilling relationships. Consider Lisa's story. For years, she was the go-to person for her friends and family. She was always there, always available, always doing what others asked, even when it drained her. But inside, Lisa felt empty. Her friends didn't understand why she was always so tired, and she couldn't remember the last time someone asked how she was feeling. She had sacrificed so much for others that she had completely lost sight of her own needs. Then one day, after a particularly exhausting week of overextending herself, Lisa realized she was at her breaking point. She couldn't keep giving without receiving anything in return, but she also didn't know how to stop. That's when she discovered the concept of self-love and healthy boundaries, a powerful lesson from Joe Dispenza's teachings. Self-love isn't just about feeling good about yourself. It's about actively choosing to prioritize your well-being, physically, emotionally, and mentally. It's about recognizing that you are worthy of respect, care, and attention, just as much as anyone else. When you embrace self-love, you begin to value yourself enough to say no when necessary, to set limits, and to protect your emotional space. This practice isn't about selfishness. It's about creating a foundation where you can give from a place of abundance, not depletion. Lisa began practicing self-love by taking small steps. She learned to say no to requests that drained her and to say yes to activities that recharged her spirit. She started setting boundaries with her time, making sure she had time for herself, whether it was a peaceful walk in nature or a quiet evening at home. The change wasn't immediate, but over time, Lisa felt more grounded, more balanced, and more at peace with herself. She no longer felt invisible or unappreciated. Instead, she was attracting relationships that were based on mutual respect and love. People began to respect her boundaries, and the friendships she had grew stronger because they were built on authenticity and understanding. Joe Dispenza often emphasizes that true transformation comes from within. When we begin to honor ourselves and protect our emotional energy, we shift the energy we project outward. The relationships we form become reflections of our own self-respect. By setting boundaries, we teach others how to treat us and create an environment where love and connection can flourish. The key takeaway here is that self-love and healthy boundaries are essential for breaking the cycle of loneliness and creating the relationships you deserve. When you prioritize your own well-being and embrace your own worth, you become magnetic, drawing in the right people who will value you for who you truly are. By learning to set boundaries and protect your energy, you build a life where you can be both kind and respected, giving and receiving in equal measure. This is the foundation for fulfilling, authentic relationships that nurture your soul, not deplete it. Conclusion: breaking the cycle and embracing genuine connection. As we wrap up this exploration of why nice people often end up alone, it's essential to reflect on the most important lesson. Breaking the cycle and embracing genuine connection begins with you. After learning to set healthy boundaries and prioritizing self-love, you're ready to embark on a new chapter, one where true connection and mutual respect flourish. But how do you break free from the loneliness that seems to follow you despite all your efforts to give, care, and be kind? It starts with embracing the power of self-awareness and the willingness to shift from self-sacrifice to self-empowerment. Let's revisit Sarah, a woman we've followed throughout this journey. At first, Sarah was trapped in the cycle of giving, always sacrificing her emotional needs for others. Her life was filled with moments of kindness, but also filled with the quiet ache of loneliness and emotional depletion. But when she learned the importance of setting boundaries, embracing her self-worth, and shifting her energy, something remarkable happened. As Sarah started putting herself first, she attracted people who saw and valued her for who she truly was, no longer just for what she could do for them. Her relationships became richer, deeper, and far more fulfilling. She finally felt seen and appreciated, not as a caretaker, but as a whole person. Breaking the cycle of loneliness requires more than just self-awareness. It requires a shift in how we interact with others and, most importantly, with ourselves. By embracing Joe Dispenza's teachings on energy and attraction, we begin to understand that the key to forming genuine connections lies in authenticity. When we stop trying to please others and start prioritizing our own emotional needs, We set the stage for relationships that are based on honesty, respect, and mutual appreciation. It's not about being nice to the point of self-neglect. It's about being kind while staying true to your own boundaries, desires, and values. Imagine how different your relationships could be if you approached them with a clear sense of self-worth, confident in your own needs, and willing to be vulnerable and authentic. By doing this, you create space for deep, meaningful connections where both you and others can thrive. Rather than feeling emotionally drained and isolated, you will find that your relationships become energizing, uplifting, and full of real love. The most important takeaway here is that the change you seek begins within. By learning to value yourself, respect your boundaries, and shift your internal energy, you'll start attracting relationships that honor and mirror your true self. It's not about being perfect or always saying the right thing. It's about being real, vulnerable, and open to the connections that are waiting for you. So, if you're ready to break free from the cycle of loneliness, it's time to embrace genuine connection. Start by loving yourself first, setting those essential boundaries, and allowing your authentic energy to guide you. The relationships you desire aren't just possible. They're waiting for you to show if you've resonated with this message. Don't let this be the end of your journey towards deeper connections. Hit that like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Your voice matters. Share your experiences, or tell us how you're planning to break free from the cycle of loneliness and embrace genuine connection. We'd love to hear your story. And don't stop here. There's so much more waiting for you. Make sure to watch our other videos, filled with powerful insights and life-changing tips to help you grow, heal, and live your best life. You deserve to feel loved, respected, and valued. Let's continue this journey together. Up as the real empowered you.